Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Ryan. Today we're going to be going over Magik in Nightmare 4, okay, in Marvel Zombies. So let's say you want to get that nice Queenslayer title to flex, that nice legendary title. We're going to talk about how you can do that, specifically with Magik. She's my favorite to play. I know that Blade is like the most meta. Like if you were to look at the leaderboard right now, I think you got to scroll back like 50 clears before you see somebody on a different character. Like let's just say solo clears. Here you go, solo clears. Look at this. It's like, it's all Blade. It's all Blade. Yeah, I think that Magik is the most fun to play, so that's why she's kind of my main in Marvel Zombies. But anyways, let's talk about how you can succeed with her. First things first, you need to know that you got to go red tree. Right now, they did just buff blue tree, but I've played with it, and I've played with others using it. And as far as I know, still, it's just it's considerably worse. Okay, it is considerably worse than red tree. So go red tree, buy all these, and in terms of important things, boom, we need to have Immortal Will equipped. This is going to remove our ultimate ability. We can no longer use Dark Child, but we gain health and damage. That's good, because basically all we're going to do is hold left click. Your other two abilities here, we want to use the Dark Child, or the Demon Spawn that has extra health. We're going to use this to take aggro off of ourselves. It's not really something we're going to be using offensively, because our primary attack is going to leave this thing in the dust very quickly, and we'll have no use for it offensively, but we are going to use it as a means of soaking up aggro, because when you put it down, especially if you've got a bunch of the big sentinels chasing you, the guys with the shields and the clubs, you can put this thing down and they will aggro to that instead, and they'll all cluster up, making it easier for you to attack them with your primary. In terms of our dash, it doesn't really matter what you use here, but we're not going to use this offensively. This is not an attack anymore. In the lower tiers, yes, you can use this as an attack, but in Nightmare 4, we're only going to use this to reposition. So this is like what I'll like to do sometimes is kite all of the enemies, especially if you're playing solo. But you can kite enemies into a corner, back yourself into the corner, make them all funnel towards you, and then you can use your E ability to dash straight up in the air over their heads. And while you're up there, you can immediately just look down and start slashing again, and you'll be shooting projectiles down at them with your sword. I'll talk about that in a minute. So you don't have to actually break up your combat to do this. It's just a repositioning tool. But yeah, red tree, and those are the abilities that I'm using. Next up, let's talk about our blessings. Okay, so in Nightmare 4, it actually matters. There's things you want and things you do not want. So you can easily waste money on what you think is important, but will not help you, or will only help you up until a certain point, at which case you're going to start having diminishing returns after that. So let's talk about where you should be spending your money. First thing I want to talk about is Full Moon. If you get this early on, you can start investing in this because it will cover its own cost eventually. This is the one that gives you more moon power when you gain moon power. So if you start stacking these early, you get lucky, sure. But if you haven't gotten this card to drop and then you start, like you're at wave 10 of 20, I wouldn't really start there. I would just stick with what you've got on the table. But otherwise, take it early or don't take it at all. If you take it early, it'll start to compound and it will pay for itself and then some. Otherwise, don't do it. Okay, let's talk about, let's go one thing at a time here. Power surges. Originally, I was picking these up. I was like, who wouldn't want more damage? But guys, the truth is, don't take power surge cards. The only time I will ever take a power surge card is if I've re-rolled a bunch and I'm not getting lucky and the legendary one presents itself right here, the 35% damage. That one I'll take. Otherwise, I'm not taking any of them. The reason for that is because this damage buff is not multiplicative like your red card buffs are going to be. So it really is just diminishing returns. And you start thinking about how much it costs to buy one of these, and you compare it to Innate Slash, for example, which is going to give us 18% more damage to like our primary attack. That is so much better than like an extra 2.5%, you know, 8%. So you are much better off re-rolling and getting an Innate Slash for twice or, you know, way more damage, more than twice the amount of damage, because it is multiplicative. So these are worthless. I do not recommend picking up power surges. Okay, save your money for the big damage buffs that cost just the same or if not less. Okay, when it comes to vitality boosts, basically at Nightmare 4, we're only going to take the legendary 450. If you're in a pinch and you really want to push it up, like you haven't had the drops and you're now approaching the final tier, yeah, you can take the purple one for 185. Is that what? Yeah, 185. But otherwise, leave vitality boosts until they are legendaries, and these ones will add up really quickly. You know, a lot of people will give you like a baseline where they're like, you need to get at least 12,000 HP by wave 20 for double Wanda, or else you'll die. It's not really that simple because there's DR, damage resistance, that you can build into that's going to change that number that you need. But overall, I tend to shoot for around 9 to 10,000. Anywhere between 9 and 10,000 is enough for double Wanda. So you don't need to full send on vitality. I've never had a situation where I'm not getting enough of the legendaries by the end to not be between 9 and 10,000. Okay, so just pick up the big ones. Other than that, let's talk about what is mandatory. What do you have to buy? You have to buy every Moonlight Protection. This is like the most important thing in purple cards, other than getting, so this is I'll say this, one of the two things you have to have. One is every single Moonlight Protection that drops, you will buy. Whether it's 2.5%, minus 5%, these stack. This is just going to reduce the damage that is incoming. All incoming damage is going to get reduced. That's a huge deal. So we buy every Moonlight Protection. The other thing that's really important is that you will need the Vampiric abilities, Vampiric Vitality here, that siphons health back, right? This is your life leech. So all damage you do, 5% of it is converted into self-healing. You really only need a couple of these, okay? If you get 2, you're probably good, because we're going to full send on damage so much that just having 10% of the damage we do come back as healing is usually going to be enough to get us right back to full health with every swing of our sword. You could get a third just to be safe, but 2 is usually going to be enough. So yeah, eventually you're going to get to a point where you don't need to buy these anymore. They are expensive. So as long as you've got 2 or 3, you can cut yourself off and say, I'm done. So never get Frost or Thunder. These suck. These will not help you like you think they will. You're going to be so much better off just full sending on the damage you're doing with your primary attack that you're not going to need all this junk. And besides, you have like AoE crowd control baked into Magik. We'll cover that in a second, but it's just going to be a part of the thing that you're already doing passively. So you don't need to buy. You don't waste currency buying these things. These are pointless. Do not buy them. Avoid them. Same with Restorative here. You don't need to buy this card, the one that gives you health while you're out of combat. We're going to be in combat basically the whole time, and we're going to be leeching life anyways. This is a waste. Don't ever buy it. Okay, let's move on to red cards. We'll talk about what's important. Okay, so here's my basic approach. Buy every red card until you hit 120 red cards total. So if you're not familiar with this system, at 20, 60, and 120 red cards, you will hit tiers to unlock new features in your build. So this is all about applying this soul mark by using a demonic soul sword attack. Now, initially, in order to use the demonic soul sword attack, you will have to cast an ability first. So if you did like your air slash, right, your right click, and then your left click right after it, you would use the demonic soul sword. And it will send out, you'll know you're using it because you'll see like the sword slash will send out a piercing wave in front of it. And anything that you hit with that attack will be marked with a soul mark. And what that does is it makes it so that anything that has been marked by your soul sword will deal less damage to you, specifically to you, and will receive more incoming damage from you. Okay, so you do more damage to things you've marked, and you receive less damage from the things that you've marked. That matters when bossing. This is basically free damage resistance. We're gonna build into it so that we need even less vitality, because we're gonna be able to tank more of Wanda's attacks or explosions and stuff like that if we have her marked and we're receiving less damage from her. At tier 2, we get the piercing attack from Demonic Soul Sword is gonna break up and fan out, right, and hit more targets. So that's pretty cool. Tier 3 is what we're really looking for. This is where Magik comes to life. Okay, one thing you need to know about Magik is that she snowballs. So if you are in last place on the leaderboard on the first 5 waves, don't feel bad, okay? That is 100% to be expected. Frankly, if you're on top of the leaderboard as Magik within the first 5 rounds, usually that means your teammates are probably throwing and they're not building out properly, because every other character should be outperforming you until you hit tier 3 on Phantom Edge. Okay, this is going to make it so that your soul marks can detonate if you do sustain damage to them. So they'll blow up. This detonation will cause damage to things around them. And each successful detonation will grant you a free Demonic Soul Sword attack. So every time you detonate one, you get a free follow-up attack. and you're going to reduce all of your cooldowns with every detonation. What that's going to mean eventually is that you're going to have all of your abilities permanently cooled down, is basically what it translates to. Is that you have every ability ready and available to go whenever you need it. So we can do our dashes, our stepping discs if we need to avoid any kind of a damage source. They're always going to be available to us. But this is when she really starts to come alive. Okay, let's talk about which cards particularly you need to get. Okay, like I said, buy every red card until you hit 120. After that, stop buying Soul Domain, okay? So Soul Domain increases the range of your primary swing. By the time you get to 120, you're going to have enough range that you can basically hit everything on the map anyways, and you're going to be throwing out extra Soul Sword ranged attacks anyways, just passively. So you don't need to full send on range. So eventually you get to the point where we stop buying Soul Domain, and we're going to save that currency for more important things. Arcane Sword Dance, we're going to buy every one of these that comes up because this increases our attack speed. More attack speed directly translates to more DPS, more damage per second. We're just dumping out our big damage attack more frequently. That adds up, that matters. So buy every one of these. Arcane Armor, I buy every one of these as well. This gives us more bonus HP, so we can start stacking that and getting a bigger pool of HP overall. So this is going to help offset not buying Vitality. And then on top of that, our conversion rate gets increased too. So more of our damage gets converted into temporary HP. Next up, Innate Slash. This is the money card. Okay, this is one of the most important cards we can get. It is just a direct damage boost. It is multiplicative. These stack. And so your damage is going to start skyrocketing. I had a clear where I had like 3 legendary innate slashes in a row, and I was like, holy cow! And it was just night and day difference the very next round. So this is a huge bump up. Every innate slash we see, we immediately buy. That should be a high priority card. And if it comes down between that and something else, we're almost always going to take this, unless we have not gotten a vampiric card yet. That one would take more precedence. We need to get that vampiric card and have some lifesteal in our build. But otherwise, innate slash, most important thing, buy it every time. Devouring Sigil, very, very important. We want this. If you see the word devour on a red card, you buy. So this is going to modify our soul mark bonuses. So we're going to do more damage to things that are marked with our soul mark, and we're going to receive less damage from them. So the more of these we have, this is a free, you think of Moonlight Protection. This is right here, 3% reduced incoming damage from Wanda, from Namor. So every time we're attacking them, we're just refreshing that mark, making them unable to do as much damage as they should be doing to us. So this is why it's important to apply this mark to everything, especially the bosses, because it's a free Moonlight Protection, basically, free damage reduction. So every Devouring Sigil we see, we buy this, okay, buy this, because this is both damage and damage resistance. It's a big card. It's a 2-for-1. Mark Detonation is interesting. We're going to buy some of these, okay? Eventually you're going to get to the point where if you've stacked maybe 3 or 4 of these cards, then you can stop buying them. All right, that detonation is important, but it's more important to have things like Innate Slash, which are huge damage increases to just our standard attack, right? That detonation happens pretty frequently, so that damage is really nice to have. It's going to help us with crowd control, but we're going to be swinging our sword and hitting everything in that crowd anyway, so the more Innate Slashes we can stack, the better. Eventually, so I'll get like 3 or 4, maybe 5 of these, and then I'll call it a day. I'll be done with it. Soul Surge. This is very important. We want as many of these as possible. You buy every Soul Surge you see, okay? Automatically grants a demonic soul sword attack at intervals in normal form. So this makes it so you don't, just to be clear, you do not have to do an ability first in order to get your demonic soul sword attack. Every time you pick up a Soul Surge, it's just going to throw in a free demonic soul sword attack into your standard primary fire. So as you're just swinging your sword, like 1 every 8 slashes, and you're swinging it really fast, that happens pretty frequently, 1 out of every 8 slashes is going to send out that piercing wave. Now, the more of these we have, the better. The more attacks we get, okay? So you start stacking these, and you're going to have eventually like 1 out of every 3 attacks. So you're going to be sending out that wave all the time, which is awesome. So that's mandatory. Buy every one of these. This is the best card you can get, period. Okay? The Innate Slash Legendary, the 85% damage. This is 85. It's almost doubling your damage every time you pick this up, and it's multiplicative. Huge deal. Huge deal. If you see this, this is like the holy grail of cards for Magic. Pick that up. But yeah, those are all the red cards we're going to be looking for. So just to recap, we're basically buying everything except after we hit 120, you can stop buying Soul Domain, which is your range. And you can stop buying Mark Detonation after a while. Get a few, 3 or 4 of these, depending on whether they're purple or legendary. 3 or 4 of these, call it a day. You're good. Basically, everything else we're going to buy pretty consistently. And that's it for your cards. Let me give you some general tips now. If you get into combat, right, these are some tips that are going to really help you out. So let's just real quick hit our kit again. The demon spawn, I highly recommend that you never use the whirlwind attack, the Eldritch Whirl. So this is the one where if you use a stepping disc, you can either hit left click to do a spinning attack, or you can hit right click to leave a demon spawn behind. Always use the demon spawn, because the animation is really fast and you can get right back to using your primary fire. If you do the whirlwind attack, that is a very long animation and you are extremely vulnerable and immobile, more or less. So we don't want to do that attack. It's going to actively get you killed. So every time you use a stepping disc, throw down a demon spawn immediately when you exit the stepping disc, because that will draw aggro to the demon spawn instead of you and help with survivability. And you can get right back to applying damage much more quickly than if you were to use the whirl attack. So only use the right click. Use your E ability, your dash, to get out of trouble, to reposition. Use it up into the air, not down through a crowd, because you don't want to dash into green guys or into exploding guys, because then you'll just immediately die. Now, another tip that is really valuable, guys, when you are just out there in the arena killing things, you're going to want to try to avoid ever staying. You can pass through it, but never stay in that front right corner, where if you die and you respawn always in that front right corner of the arena. You want to keep that area as clear as possible. So if you hang out there, exploding guys are going to go there. Guys are going to throw grenades there. And the green guys are going to throw pools of green acid on the floor there. And so what you can end up doing is making that a really dangerous place to be. And what that can lead to is when somebody respawns, they could respawn directly into hazards. And they have a short window of invulnerability. But if the hazards are stacked up there, they're not going to be able to get out of that corner in time to avoid the damage, and they'll just die again. This is especially important when you are doing the Wanda fight, because if you hang out there, she's going to stack her immobility bubbles there, the ones that freeze you in place. So when you respawn during the Wanda fight, get the heck out of that corner as fast as possible. You don't want bubbles going down there, because what can happen is when you respawn, you could get perma-stun locked and just immediately die without the ability to do anything about it if she's putting bubbles there. So never ever just hang out in that corner. You want to avoid it at all costs. Now, speaking of hazards, you want to prioritize the green guys. The green guys are the most deadly in Nightmare 4. So if the green guys spawn, it's a lot easier just to take them out as they spawn when they're in these small, big clusters, right? The small clusters, big number of enemies all tightly grouped up. They're a lot easier to take care of right on spawn than if you were to allow them to fan out and cover the whole arena. Then they're a huge pain in the butt. So if you're ever in a situation where you're seeing 2 waves coming in, one of them is green and the other is not, go for the green ones first and take out as many of them as possible as they spawn. Now, when it comes to bossing, a couple of quick tips. When you're fighting Namor, you're going to want to hug him and then do damage through him to the squids around him, right? That's pretty obvious. When it comes to Wanda, especially the end Wanda, when you have 2 of them, it's usually best to pick one. I've gotten Nightmare 4 clears where we're damaging both of them simultaneously, and actually both of them end up at the final stand together, and they're like fused into one, a super Wanda. That's happened, and we can clear it that way too. But it's a lot easier if you're playing solo for sure, just to do one Wanda at a time. And if that's the case, like I said, you don't want to stack too many of those range buffs, because then you could just not be able to help it. As you're hitting one Wanda, you're just going to be hitting the other one too. So what you can do is hug her tightly and aim at her feet. That way any like bleed through damage you do with the extra range goes through the floor and not into the other Wanda. Does that make sense? So hug right up on her and aim down at her feet. That way you can damage just one Wanda at a time and send her to her final stand before the other one really gets to the point where they're doing, those consistent in her bubble attacks. But yeah, that's more or less my advice for Magik. Hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully that gives you a better understanding of what you should be buying and why and when. Remember that your Moonlight Protection, your damage resistance, that's the most important thing. Get your Vitality up to around 9, maybe 10,000. Just to play it safe, but other than that, you're going full damage, baby, and you're going to be blowing stuff up naturally with your Demonic Soul Sword. So that's the way to go. Got it? If you've got any other tips you want to add to the comments section below for other Magik players, feel free to do so. And if this video is received well, I'll go ahead and make follow-up videos and guides for the other heroes as well. Thor's super fun, by the way. Mega underrated. If you go, I was playing around with the red tree just because they just buffed it. But if you go full blue, this is super fun, guys. Super fun. Anyways, with that, be warm and well fed, and I hope to catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.